Today's sponsor of the Vision Quest podcast is 920 Hat Company. Leather patch hats are in, and 920 Hat Company is here to hook you up with your very own custom hat. All patches are lasered on top-grade genuine leather and on popular brand hats like Richardson and FlexFit. Whether you're looking to show off your business or want a one-of-a-kind hat for yourself, 920 Hat Company can do it all. All the hats are handcrafted right in the Fox Valley, but worn across America. With over 500 hats in stock, they guarantee fast turnaround times. Honestly, Liam, looking at these hats, solid, right?
Yeah, they're pretty. I like them.
I like that patch itself.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one-of-a-kind stuff. I know his name's Trevor. He does great work. He's actually gotten I think we got a knit hat coming.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we got that coming. So we're really excited to have these guys on board as a sponsor. So get down to check them out on Facebook. I believe they're on Instagram. Check them out, man. They got the best hats, I think, in the Fox Valley, if not in the state.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So get down to 920 Hat Company on social media and check them out. All right, everybody. We are back. We are joined here. I think everybody's kind of seen what's going on YouTube and most likely Instagram and Facebook. We have here, and we're in the wrestling world, and he is as well. We are with the scientific wrestling guy with Coach Jake Shannon. How you doing today?
Hey, Brad, I'm good, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, you're busy, man. I appreciate you coming on. I think right now I have a live video on from you that is a 7-hour live video.
It could be.
Holy shit, that is crazy. Okay, so I love the fact that number one, we just touched base that we're both in sales, right? We both love talking to people and kind of engaging with people and making things, I guess, interesting, or answering questions or getting questions answered. So with that being said, people have questions about you. Not everybody knows everything about Jake Shannon. Now, I've talked to Mark Schultz in the past. I've had him on the show, talked to him a little bit. And I know that he's talked about catch wrestling and catch as catch can and stuff like that. But I was like, I had to start Googling stuff. Never heard of it. So you're immersed in that world. So let's start off first. Jake Shannon, where did you come? Where do you come from? What state are you from originally?
I'm originally from Colorado. I'm actually back in Colorado now. But in between, I grew up in Colorado. I graduated from the University of Colorado Boulder in 95.
Okay.
In 94, the year before I graduated, I went to the UFC #2 live.
I heard about that.
The first two were here in Denver.
Yeah.
And it changed my life, man. Like, I was like, oh my God, what in the hell?
Right?
This is crazy, dude. Because I had actually, in my youth, and I was probably I think I was 21 when I saw the first UFC.
Yeah.
And I never liked pro wrestling. I never liked it. I was like, that's the dumbest shit. Pardon my language.
No, you're good.
What the fuck? How are you guys into this? This is stupid.
Yeah.
And then I saw the UFC and I was like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is what it would be like if it was real.
It was real, yeah. Oh man.
And I was like, dude, it just changed my life. And so, I'm 21.
Yeah.
I'm stupid. I'm full of testosterone. I got a worthless freaking degree. Like, I went to college on a scholarship and I got an English degree. It was so stupid. And I go to, I'm like, dude, I got to get out of here because we were having to fly in, like, we would fly in Pedro Sauer from Salt Lake City into Boulder Karate. We would bring in a couple of the guys. Kaseka Munez is one. Okay. Most people never heard of this dude. Yep. Ricardo Miguel. People might have heard of Ricardo Miguel on the jiu-jitsu side. And I was like, dude, I need to get out of here because there ain't nothing here. So I packed up and moved to California. I had the most opportunities in Northern California.
Yeah.
So I went up there and I worked with a guy named Carly Gracie.
Mm-hmm.
Who is a great guy, really great guy, and was really helpful for me when I was a young man. And I ended up dirt poor in San Francisco because I like I said, I had a worthless degree and it was like a very expensive city like New York.
Yeah.
I had no contacts. I didn't know anybody. So long story short, I got sick of being poor.
Yep.
Like really poor, like working like 4 minimum wage. I've always been a grinder, dude. Like,
okay. Yeah. I can tell.
Talking about work ethic. Yeah, dude, I'm like a grinder from day one. And that's really what I like about the wrestling. I think why it dovetails with my own just kind of way of being is just wrestlers tend to be grinders. And anyway, I was in San Francisco, poor as hell, and I was like, dude, I can't even afford jiu-jitsu. And back then, Carly, nice guy, but he was still a businessman. He was charging me $200 a month back then.
Shit.
Yeah. Right. And that's before all this like inflation and all that shit. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was like, dude, I went back to grad school. Really, I'm a person also that likes to challenge myself. So I went. Yeah. I was like, dude, I need to figure out money. I went to grad school, got my master's degree in financial math, which was like the hardest thing I could have imagined doing.
Yeah.
Did that, graduated, got some really nice, cushy gigs, which then allowed me to do whatever training I wanted. And by that time, we're talking probably 97, 98.
Yeah.
The wrestlers, the folk stylers were already starting to infiltrate the MMA and grappling scene.
Yeah.
And I had gotten used to just beating people on sheer, kind of conditioning and knowing a few tricks, but I wasn't like really serious.
Yeah.
And these guys came in from folk style and I was just getting hammered and I was like, what, dude? So I was fortunate because I just, I actually started in Pee Wee wrestling like in 1977. My mom put me in.
Yeah.
And so I knew a thing or two about wrestling, but it wasn't like my thing. Like we had talked about earlier, like, I had some illnesses in high school that kept me out of the wrestling room.
Yeah.
But I knew what was up. And so I was like, dude, holy shit. I never thought of wrestling as a martial art.
Yeah.
Until I started getting my ass kicked again. I was like, dude, oh, wow. So then I just dropped all the jiu-jitsu. I was like, dude, this stuff is dead in the water. But, that was like, so counter to the thinking. Everybody in the grappling MMA world was like, oh, jiu-jitsu this, jiu-jitsu that.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, dude, I'm out in the field testing this.
Yeah.
You guys have trouble coming when the folk stylers figure this shit out.
Yeah.
So long story short, I just went and dived deep back into wrestling and found a dude in Oakland. His name's Dan Coltrane. He had a little USA Wrestling Club out in Oakland. I worked out with him for a while.
Yep.
And then I just was like, dude, I'm going to town. But at the same time, I was making so much money in investment banking and mortgage banking.
Oof. Yeah.
And I still had no connections in the MMA world. I wanted to take fights and all that because I was in my late 20s. But I just wasn't connected. I didn't have the network to get in, and there were hardly any events back then.
Even with Gracie behind you? Even with Gracie?
He wasn't really behind me, dude. Like, I was like, the second I couldn't pay $200 a month, he wasn't behind me. He was gone.
Okay. All right. All right.
Just being real.
Okay.
I don't blame him. I want to get paid too. But I mean, I was like, so, and I had kind of dipped and gone into wrestling and stuff. And so, it just wasn't going. And I was like, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of opportunities. It was very, very new. Even back in like the late 90s, it was still new.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I started, and this is kind of embarrassing. I started dating a girl. She was kind of out of my league.
Yeah.
And she was like this stripper. Well, she was a stripper. She was super hot.
Yeah.
I was dumb and stupid.
Right.
And but she was really into pro wrestling.
Okay. The shit that you thought was dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was so against it, dude. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, to impress this girl, I'm gonna figure it out.
Yep, that's right.
So I actually got involved in pro wrestling, and you know what, dude? Like pro wrestling like took off for me. It wasn't huge, but dude, I had a WWE tryout.
Wow.
I toured the US.
Shit.
I trained internationally and stuff. So
okay.
But it did, once the shine of, getting out in front of a crowd and having the rock music play and all that, after a while, I kind of realized, man, this is stupid again. I was like, this is not me. So I did it for like 3 years and had great success for such a short period of time.
Yeah.
But then I was like, dude, this is stupid. So at that time, I'd been talking with a lot of old time pro wrestling guys.
Okay.
And they kept telling me, because I kept complaining, I'm like, man, I've always been lanky. And there would be these big, like 6'4", 300-pound dudes in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
But they started believing that they were actually good wrestlers. You know what I mean? Like they started believing the gimmick. And I'm like,
they have the challenge, man.
Dude, I could kill all these dudes. You guys suck.
Yeah.
And I would complain to these old timers, and they're like, "Oh man, well you need to start figuring out the catch as catch can." And I'm like, "What is that?" And he's like, "Dude, you realize pro wrestling used to be real. The stuff you see in the UFC is what it used to be like,
really,
before the corruption set in." And I'm like,
"Oh shit,
tell me more."
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm like, who do I talk to? What?
Yeah.
And so they kept throwing around these names like Carl Gotch, Billy Robinson, Danny Hodge, these names. And I'm like, okay. So then that set me off on a line of research, and I was like, oh my God, this is untapped territory.
Yep.
And I've always been sales minded, entrepreneurial. And I'm like, dude, holy shit. While everybody else is zigging, I'm going to own this. I'm going to own this area, and I'm going to grow it, and I'm going to dominate, dude.
Yeah. So,
and 20 years later, that's kind of what has been happening. It's been really a blessing.
Yeah. And just kind of watching, just going through a lot of, like I said, I did a short deep dive kind of thing, but watching the evolution of what you had been doing as far as just kind of what you were talking about, you've always been about the same kind of energy and things like that. But as far as watching, your eyes were opening up to things as you were going along and kind of watching it, I was like, shit, this is okay. This is interesting. So catch as catch can wrestling. I did a little bit of reading, but it's interesting. Yes, it is. Like you said, it was the WWF, but MMA and UFC style. It was that all the way through. Right. So knowing that, and you've talked about a lot of the things that you've been in, but something had happened. Like you're not able to compete. You had something in an artery in your neck, correct? Right? Something happened.
Yeah, and it's funny, man. There's actually how CTE, like the concussions and all that stuff came for the NFL.
Yep.
What I had was called a carotid dissection, which just means that your carotid artery's completely fucked.
Yep.
So, pardon my language.
You're fine.
Sorry, but
swear all the
so
time.
I'm basically I'm running on my spare. You know what I mean? I don't got another one. I'm like, it's toast.
Yeah.
But that's actually quite a common injury in grappling,
right? Because
of all of the pressure and the chokes put against the carotid. So. Yeah, and I still did a lot of gym wrestling. I did a couple tournaments here and there.
Yeah.
I really fucking just love the shit out of this stuff,
Yeah.
But around 2008 is when they're guessing. I didn't get diagnosed until 2019.
Yep.
But the vascular surgeon was speculating it was probably around 2008 when I had the collapse of my carotid, and I was having like stroke symptoms, and I didn't know the symptoms of a stroke for a couple years. Yep. And so I just was like, what in the hell is going on here? I didn't know.
Yeah.
But like my right arm stopped working. I would kind of lose my vision, and I'm like, dude, I can't wrestle like this, dude. I can't. Right. I have to see, and I need I'm not that good that I could tie an arm behind my back. I gotta, because I'm wrestling with some pretty
heavy duty
good
dudes.
studs,
Yeah, for sure.
And so I had to kind of just have this, I'll be honest with you, it was a real hard period of my life because so much of my life I had identified, like my personality, I really identified as a wrestler, and a lot of times. If I had a beef with somebody, we just settled it on the mat.
Sure.
And dude, like that was taken from me, and I had to just learn a whole new way of being.
So with that being said, though, I mean, with this, because now I'm going to bring up your shoot 3, right? So you were bringing to light catch as catch can. So I watched some of it. Now, knowing what you went through with that injury, are there things that they have done now that like to put in place to kind of help from that happening? Or is it just a result of how the sport is and just because it's rough, man? I mean, those guys are literally beating the piss out of each other. And
dude, I mean, I look at this Elon Musk Zuckerberg MMA match. I'm like, these guys are going to get fucking jacked, man. I mean, you know, the guys that go in and are at the high level and you get to watch, man, like it could be a dangerous thing. Like a lot of people, there's people getting paralyzed.
Yes.
Again, strokes are huge, not to mention just dumb things like ACL and, you know, that are real, but like, you know, awful. So, you know, my problem is my fault.
Okay.
Like I'm not a fan of people coming in and, you know, putting freaking bubble wrap over everybody. And, you know, like I think that's actually a problem with our culture in large.
Thank you.
Is everybody's too fucking soft and everybody's too protected and you got to take some risks.
Yep.
That said, because I do a lot of coaching and I do a lot of training and I do a lot of PSA on this, you know, like public service announcements about this. I'm like, don't, you know, do as I say, don't do as I did.
Yeah.
And what we used to do in the early days, man, it's like in the early days, I was never really much of a striker. I fucked around with it a little bit, but I was never a huge striker.
Yeah.
But like I would go to the gym and in the early days, guys were teeing off on each other in practice and getting concussions in practice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so once the CTE entered the scene, they were like, okay, we're going to back off on that on practice. We're going to save those hard headshots for the actual fight. Well, that's where I'm at with the chokes. I'm like, and the neck cranks. I'm like, guys, it's cool, but don't ever fight out of one.
Sure.
Unless it's, again, a pro fight.
Yeah.
Don't fight out of it because dude, I guarantee you that the cutting bone of the wrist or wherever is getting against the carotid is stronger than the artery. I guarantee you, man. It's not a good fight, right? You're bringing a knife to a gunfight there. So, it had to do with me being an idiot and not having proper training because it was kind of the Wild West, like very early days.
Yeah.
And we were doing dumb shit.
Knowing when to say when is what you're saying. When you're competing or you're in the moment, know when to just, I'm good. Tapping out. You're
just tap, dude. You know, people are smart about that with regards to leg locks now because of the damage to the knee a lot of times, especially on heel hooks.
Yeah.
But, they need to be smart with that on the carotid chokes.
Understood. So, and it goes hand in hand because, like, I talked to Greco coach Lucas Stelt that's in the state here and kind of describing like just even Greco wrestling. If guys don't even know how to be on the defensive end of something and land, you know, you're going to get hurt. You know, the guy who is doing the move may know what he's doing, but you got to know what you're doing coming and landing. So that's the other thing too is
you can get spiked on your head or you're going to freaking put a hand out and lose your shoulder.
Yep. If your feet leave the ground, tuck your chin. That's all we try to tell people. Once your feet leave the ground, tuck your chin and just go for the ride. Right. Don't fight. Don't fight anything. So with what you've started right now, you started scientific wrestling. Was it 2009? This is a while back. Earlier than that.
2003, actually, 20 years ago. Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay. So what brought all this? What brought the want to start creating? And because you got a lot of drive, you're a sales guy, and you're motivated. So with that being said, what got you to this point of, obviously you weren't, you were able to coach, but not competing. So it left you some free time. I'm taking it. But what drove to want to start creating? Because you've got books out there, you've got all kinds of content that's on your website that is on scientificwrestling.com, by the way. You guys have so much out there. What drove you to this?
You know, man, like it's kind of weird. I'm just freaking type A.
Yeah.
And if I find something, I've just got this thing I've got to dominate. And it doesn't mean I always do.
Right.
But dude, I'm in there. I'm like in the scrum, kicking, elbowing, like I'm in there.
It's awesome.
And I'll be honest with you, this is kind of funny because, I've been a business nerd, not as long as I've been a wrestling nerd, but I've been a business nerd for a minute.
Yeah.
And I actually was like, I was spending so much on training back then, going to camps, gear, instructionals, all that shit.
Yep.
I actually started it as a tax write-off.
That's a pass. Okay. All right. Nice.
Because I knew that like I could get away with about 3 years of doing that before the IRS got pissed off.
It's awesome. I love playing the game, dude. It's awesome. So okay, keep going. Yep.
So I did that. And then, like the thing is I'm not a big intimidating guy. I'm a lanky wrestler, right?
Yeah.
Which, the typical guy you see wrestling is like, in my opinion, it's kind of a shorter, stockier guy.
Yep.
Does the John Smith style, of wrestling. And I'm a Wade Chalice, lanky, leverage and reach guy.
Yep.
And so I just had in my journeys gathered together a bunch of shit, like techniques and ideas, and had been doing a bunch of research because I wanted to win.
Okay. Yep.
So I wasn't just one of these guys that's like, I'm just going to show up to practice. I'm like, I'm not just going to work hard. I'm going to work smart. I'm not going to, you know what I mean? They say like, don't work hard, work smart. I'm like, I do both. And then I kill both of those guys.
Right.
So I started studying, and when I was talking to some of these old timers and they were telling me about the catch wrestling, I was like, I started looking up the books. And because I was making a crap ton of money, more money than a 30-year-old really has any business making.
Yeah.
I was just blowing this money on wrestling shit.
No shit.
And I was collecting all these old antique books that were like thousands of dollars, right? It was like lots of money.
Yeah.
And I realized, I'm like, dude, I cannot be the only person that digs this weird, obscure shit and would want to read about it and learn about it.
Right.
And so literally one day I just got a wild hair.
Yeah.
And I sat down. I went to Home Depot to like Office Max or something, bought a scanner.
Yeah.
This is like 2002.
I was going to say, yeah, right. You're not dealing with all the social media stuff yet. Yeah.
Dude, it didn't exist, man. YouTube didn't exist. And I sat there literally like lifted the lid, turned the page, put it on the thing, close the lid, hit scan.
That's
and I
dedication.
did that like 10,000 times. I have over 10,000 pages of material, and I collated it, put it together in books, and then I started marketing it.
Yeah.
And people were like stoked. They're like, holy shit, here's somebody doing this move from 100 years ago.
Yes.
How cool, And at that, once I saw that there was demand, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And so then I just started seeking out more shit like that. I found these old tapes that were out of print.
Yeah.
Wade Chalice's Legal Pain. He'd taken it off the market for years, and it was like the best-selling wrestling tape.
Yeah.
And I was like, Wade, dude, let me remaster this. Let me put it on DVD.
That's awesome.
And let me get it out there and selling it. And I started doing that with a bunch of guys. And then so I went from books to DVDs. And then after I got done with DVDs, everybody was like, man, I want to learn from them. I was like, okay, we're going to do seminars. So then we started doing seminars.
Oh, Jesus.
Then once we started doing seminars, I was like, you know what? I think this idea of making pro wrestling competitive again has legs. I think there's something to this.
Yep.
And so I actually started hosting competitions in 2007.
Yep.
And that's kind of been the genesis. Those main things have been what I've really just extrapolated on and honed and developed and marketed and grown.
Just kept plowing through. Well, and so the amount of content that you have out, and not just content, but just information. We'll say information, because you were starting before the content life began. So with the amount of information you're putting out, you're getting feedback, you're doing seminars and things like that. The events, did the events kind of, was it like some people caught on to it? Was it like with people with Greco? Not everybody likes Greco, right? But there are a chasm of people that will kill to watch Greco and kill to compete and kill to watch it. Were you running into those types of crowds with that? Because looking at catch wrestling, it looks like it's predated almost every other wrestling that's out there, right? Pretty much, for the most part.
Yeah. You can go and you could so Greco, people don't realize Greco-Roman's new. It was actually an invention of the modern Olympics in like 1898 or 1896, actually. Right. I think it was 1896.
Pancrase before, wasn't it?
Well, so pancration was the old like Greek
Yes.
style of wrestling that had submissions in it.
Yep.
But that had that was thousands and thousands of years ago.
Correct.
And so the Greco-Roman was actually an attempt to recreate the upper body wrestling styles of Europe, and particularly like Northern Europe, like Glima, and these Viking styles of wrestling. Most wrestling, especially in the West, was upper body wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were some styles like Cornish and Devonshire, and they had jackets, and there's other ones that were like back hold styles where you had to start almost in like this weird over under clinch kind of thing.
Yes.
And but it was always really frowned upon to continue wrestling on the ground. Like once you threw the guy, that was it. You won, or you got you got the point.
Yep.
So Catch as Catch Can was first really recorded and documented in 1870.
Okay.
Now it predates that even, because it was mostly practiced by the poor Irish. And you have to understand the history. The Irish
Those are my people.
were, yeah, me too, man.
Yeah.
And they were colonized by the British.
Yes.
And they were basically treated like how blacks were treated here.
Yes.
Very, very poorly.
Yep.
And one of the things the English did to subjugate them is they forbade them from learning how to read and write. So this is why I'm very certain, because when you go back and you look at all these early Catch as Catch Can guys, all of them were Irish.
Yep.
All their names were Irish. But the first people to record it were the English gentry, like the upper class that was betting on these. Well, it was like they were betting on these
Irish
people, like you would bet on fighting dogs and cocks.
God,
it was brutal.
It is brutal.
And so what the Irish did that was different, and they just did not give a shit because they were already subjugated and poor.
Yeah.
Is they said, well, we ain't going to stop wrestling when we hit the ground.
Yeah. Then what?
We're going to wrestle till you give up.
Yep. I love that. I love that story.
But so the crazy thing is that crazy ass idea, those psycho nuts that did that ended up creating the biggest, most impactful, not just combat sport, in my estimation, sport ever.
Yep.
In terms of, and this I believe is quantifiable when you look at the number of fans, athletes, coaches, promoters involved, because this Catch as Catch Can style, it birthed Olympic wrestling.
Yep.
Like at 1904 in London.
Yep.
The first freestyle match was called Amateur Catch as Catch Can.
Oh, no shit. No shit. I didn't even pay attention.
So every athlete that's ever done freestyle, every coach, every business person that's promoted it, all of that were impacted by the sport. Folk style, it's the same thing. Was the American version of freestyle.
Wow.
Professional wrestling, and that dude is huge, man.
Yes.
Like the WWE was sold for $8 billion. Like they're in the top 10.
That's right.
They're in the top 10 YouTube channels. Like this is massive. The number of people that's impacted, and MMA, MMA, all of it started with catch wrestlers. Now, the UFC was started by the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys. The Gracie family actually started that as a promotional vehicle for their style. But it started, actually, Pancrase opened its doors, which was the first modern MMA, opened their doors about a month or two before the UFC. But there had actually been another one called Shuto in Japan that was started by Karl Gotch and Sayama, a pro wrestler known as Tiger Mask. And that was MMA like in 86.
Wow.
So if you think, like, it's bigger than soccer.
Yeah.
It's bigger than baseball, than basketball, than any other sport in terms of the quantity of people that have been impacted. And it just goes back to these gnarly little Irish guys.
These little Irish fucks rolling around.
Like we're just not going, dude, you're going to have to give up.
You imagine how a bar looked like after that? Like after, especially having that sport rolling around, just an Irish pub of just guys rolling around in like beer and piss and just fighting it out and then having drinks afterwards. That's the best kind of shit, you know?
Well, you have to remember back in those days, man, first of all, these people couldn't read and write, so they weren't reading books. They weren't reading news. They had no way of entertaining. There was no swiping up, down, left, right. There was no Call of Duty to play. There was none of that. The only entertainment the poor people had back then was betting on dumb shit.
Yep.
And dude, they bet on everything.
Yep, they did.
They bet on everything. And so, the actual first professional wrestlers were these coal miners in the north of England that after a long day hunched over, with a pickaxe getting coal out of these mines.
Black faces, yeah.
Yeah, gnarly.
Yep.
They were like, all right, I think I can kick your ass. All his friends would back him. The other guy's friends would back them. They pool money.
Yep.
And then eventually some of these guys got so good at these side bet wrestling matches that they didn't have to work in the mines. They were making enough money wrestling. And these were the first pro wrestlers.
Wow.
And then the first promoters, I'm only thinking of this because you mentioned the pubs.
Yep.
The first promoters were the publicans, not republicans, publicans. These are the people that ran the pubs.
Yes, correct.
And they saw how freaking hot this was and how much people loved this shit.
Yep.
And they said, hey, why don't you hold the match in my pub?
Yep.
Because then I can sell beer.
Yep. And they did it. And so they did. I remember seeing some pictures of it. They actually, it was drawn pictures, but they actually had almost like where you'd see like a stage where a band would set up or like the band would congregate to play. They would empty all the chairs. And I remember seeing this drawing. They would have all the tables rounded together and it was a crowd of guys standing around. And you'd think you'd see guys standing like this with their fists up, if they're ready to, they weren't. They were holding on to each other's waistbands and they were literally it looked like one of them was getting ready to launch the other one. So I was like, this is absolutely flooring me right now. I'm so used to everybody depicting little Irish guys with their hands up like the Notre Dame guy. And it's like, no, these guys are getting ready to like throw down on the ground. Like they're getting ready to throw.
Well, that's funny, right? Because you always think of like Irish with boxing.
Yes.
But not only was it boxing, it was also like wrestling.
Yeah.
And like I said, man, they kicked off a massive firestorm that's still going today like crazy.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of why it piqued my interest so much as far as watching. When I hear the phrase of scientific wrestling, right? Science. Okay. I can wrap my mind around it, but when I start to try to think of the science of it, what are you thinking? What are you thinking science? And I'm like, well, is it the body? What is it? You're breaking it down though, not to just the body, but you're making a science of it because, and I heard you were talking about it. You're taking parts of catch wrestling. You're taking parts of, I think it was 2 other sports, adapting things into wrestling, into folk style wrestling, or whether it's freestyle, someone can adapt it to how they want. Where were you starting? Is this where the part of that journey was with you kind of getting ideas from all those books and things like that? Because a lot of what I'm hearing from you is newer content, but was a lot of that from back in the day of taking all those things and putting them together? Is that kind of where scientific wrestling came from? Is that the culmination?
Well, so when I started out, I was like, okay. When I first started, I started doing grappling, and I was doing, because what we used to do back then, because there was no contest, you did like these challenge matches.
Okay.
So there actually back in the day, now he's passed away. He unfortunately committed suicide. But one of my very first student was a guy named Rashawn Salam.
Okay.
And he was actually a Heisman Trophy winner out of University of Colorado Boulder.
Wow.
And we became good friends. He ended up getting kicked out of the NFL because he tested positive for pot. It's so tragic.
Yes.
He was like a hell of an athlete. And when he got out of there, he actually went to China and started, he's one of the guys instrumental for starting what's known as One Fighting Championship, which is actually, in terms of viewership, bigger than the UFC.
Yes.
But it's a China-based
I think that's where Ben
MMA
Askren started. I think that's where Ben started.
He was in it. Yeah.
Yes.
He was there. Yeah.
Yep.
And Rashawn Salam was instrumental in getting that started, but I was instrumental in getting him started doing MMA.
Yeah.
Because we used to do these challenge matches. We just go to the rec center at CU or wherever there was a mat room, you know, and we would just freaking go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And But what I noticed is in the beginning, I could beat the wrestlers because they didn't know the submissions.
Oh yeah, sure.
Right. So they could take me down. There might be a guy who's a way better wrestler than me.
Sure.
But he didn't know the submission, so I get him every time. Well, that only worked like once or twice till they figured it out. And then they started doing the shit to me.
Yeah.
And they had better control. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Right. So like I realized that wrestling itself as folk style and freestyle, when you apply it in an MMA context, is not, or a submission grappling contest, is not complete because they took out the submission holds. It used to have holds.
Okay. Yeah.
But then they took the submission holds out to make it a broader sport that could be done scholastically.
Okay.
So the reason why, okay, this is kind of a long-winded way, but I don't know how to say it briefer. But scientific wrestling was already a euphemism for catch as catch can. Another way of saying it was they would go, like in pro wrestling, they would say, oh, that guy's a scientific wrestler.
Okay.
Which meant he ain't a phony. Maybe he's up there doing the theatrical bullshit to get paid, but he will fucking rip your head off. Like, you don't fuck with that guy.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yep.
And so typically somebody who got called a scientific wrestler was somebody like Danny Hodge, or Lou Thez, or Billy Robinson, or Carl Gotch, Gene LaBelle. But typically it meant somebody who had either a catch as catch can background or a scholastic wrestling background.
Okay.
That was just like the lingo in pro wrestling. They said, right, that this guy's a scientific wrestling. That means they either had a good folk style freestyle background or a catch as catch can background. Okay.
Yep.
So when I started coming up with this idea that, man, I think I could do something big, and I see a big hole in the market and I think I can fill it, I was like, I don't want to just call it catch wrestling.
Right.
You know, because what I want to do is I want to create like a hybrid style that really brings back the catch wrestling to the forefront, because there's so much lost information that really is applicable and relevant today that nobody knew about. But I wanted to integrate it into folk style because, you know, I had gotten my ass kicked by enough folk stylers. I was like, this shit is dope.
Yeah.
I need to learn it.
Yeah.
Right. Like the whole reason I got into grappling is because my a friend of mine who had judo beat the shit out of me. I was like, I need to figure this out. So, right. So scientific wrestling really started with me looking at the already used lingo and marketing from pro wrestling. To label what I was doing. I was like, ooh, that's kind of a cool sounding name, scientific wrestling. I like that. Nobody's using it. So I bought the URL, I went deep, and I just freaking owned it. And then one thing that's interesting, though, in particular, the guys that I've been fortunate to surround myself with, like, you know, I do this in business, and I did this in grappling. I found the fastest way to get good, and I actually learned this through snowboarding randomly, but I found that the fastest way to get good is to be the worst guy in the room. If you're the best guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Right.
Your ego might want you to stay there. Your comfort might want you to stay there.
Agreed.
But once you start getting to be the top guy in the room, you need to get into a tougher room.
You got to move.
Period.
That's right. Well, and we did the same. I mean, I have a 15-year-old. I have my son Liam, and he's been wrestling since he was 4. Right. So as they grow just like their clothes. They grow out of clothes. Right. They get too big for their clothes. Well, guess what? Some rooms you just get too big for. You wind up growing out of. The only problem with that is that you wind up going in a lot of rooms. These kids all glom together, and then you want to get better, and you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna come over here," and you're like where you're super like you want to grind and learn at the same time, right? You want to get the technical side while really beating either the shit out of the other guy or yourself. But some of those guys don't want to, you know, and they're like, no, I'm practicing with Johnny over here. And you're like, well, dude, I want to get better. And you're one of the good guys. So now you're taking it easy.
Yeah. I mean, this is the challenge. I don't coach kids because I think it adds a layer of difficulty, and that is that they don't want to be there.
Right.
Like I like coaching people that are over 18.
Yes.
Because nobody's forcing them to be there. They're there because they want to learn.
Yes.
And then if I push them and they push out, then get the fuck out. I'm done. I'll move on to somebody
I'm the same way. It's right. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's just, I'm just being real. Like, I'm glad there are people that are challenging
Yes.
these young people, but I can't do it.
Correct.
I can't do it. I'm like, you don't want to be here. Get the fuck out.
Yep.
Like,
I agree. I told you it just got done because I'm going to go back and hopefully coaching soccer again. And I told him, I said, I can't, nothing under 14. I can't, nothing under 14 and up. I don't even want that. I said, if I can get 15 and up, that'd be great, because a lot of these kids are already committed to the sport already. And they've been doing it long enough where I know that they're open-minded enough to learn things, but I know that I can also put them over on the other side of the field. Know they're going to work, you know? Yes. And I told, okay, youth coaches, please don't take offense to any of this. You guys are great. You're doing awesome.
no,
we need
great.
you guys.
They're great. But what you have to do, if you're not wanting to turn the kid off, you got to make it fun. It can't be pressure. It can't. It's just got to be fun.
Exactly.
And
Totally
I'm wanting to make killers, dude.
Right.
I want freaking, like, just
beast,
dominate, crush.
Yes.
I don't care.
Eat your face.
That's right. Yeah, and dude, like, they have to want to do that. Like,
yeah. Kids, and so that was the fun part of, like, I did coach youth soccer for a little while. I coached youth wrestling, and that's the fun part. I mean, yes, it's great to see the kids have fun, but for me to get results, like, those kids can't handle what I'm going to handle and give them to get those results. So I'm saving the children, I guess, in lack of a better term, saving the kids for the better of the planet. But what you're doing with scientific wrestling is so I call it evolution, right? So I've always asked that I had been on with another guy that does a podcast, Teak Fenwick, and we asked, and I've asked several guys, what's the next evolution that wrestling, folk style in our country, folk style wrestling can go through? And there's only so much you can do with freestyle and Greco, because it's so European. It's not ours. You know, we didn't create it. How much more can we evolve? And then I see this, and I'm like, okay, there's another evolution coming. You know, there's something else.
My vision is, the present is the combination of the future and the past.
Correct. Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, like, my vision is, honestly, like, okay, I think folk style is like the coolest goddamn thing on the planet. I just freaking love it, right? I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's at massive risk.
Yes.
Massive risk.
Yep.
If you've been around for a minute, you saw what Title IX did.
Yep. Correct.
If you've been around for a minute, you saw the Olympics, like, almost booted freestyle.
Almost. Correct. Yep. Exactly.
The reason is, in my opinion, and again, there might be some blue-haired Biden people out there that don't like what I'm going to say here.
Yeah.
But it's because it's been socialized, dude. And you know what? There's going to be some wrestlers that don't want to hear this either.
Yeah.
Wrestling is socialized. And because of that, it's under the thumb of a centralized authority, the government. Mm-hmm. Like, it's funded through tax.
Yes. Yeah.
And so my solution is, because I'm a business guy, I'm like, we need to turn this into a market-based system.
Sure.
We need to make wrestling retail.
Yeah.
And this is where we can take a lesson from the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys. Mm-hmm. There's one of those fucking BJJ places in every goddamn strip mall in the country.
There is. Yes.
And it's only been that way for 20 years, dude. Yeah. Like, I had to go to California. I had to move to do it. These fucking punk asses just go down the street now. I'm like, oh my God, you bitch. You don't even know what I sacrificed to do this shit.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So now that's my vision for wrestling. And I think if you look at what is actually happening in the marketplace, there's this giant fucking company run by Ari Emanuel.
Yeah.
Who's the guy from Entourage, if you ever watch that show on HBO.
Yep.
He was the actor played by Jeremy Piven.
Yep.
Ari Emanuel runs Endeavor. Endeavor owns UFC and WWE.
Wow.
I, on the other hand, own the intersection where those two circles overlap.
Yes. Yep.
That's where I think it needs to go.
Yeah.
I think that we need to create, and this is what I've done with Shoot Pro Wrestling.
Yeah.
We need to create competitive grappling under professional wrestling rules.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. It works.
So,
dude, it works.
I watched.
I ran a middleweight tournament.
Yeah. Yep.
It was won by Jacoby Jones, who is an LFA. I think he's middleweight champion, but he's also my middleweight. He might be lightweight champion for LFA.
Yep.
Anyway, he's a strong folk styler. He crushed it in there, in my promotion.
Yep.
But I don't just do singles matches, dude. We do tag team.
I saw that. I didn't watch one of those matches, but I saw that shit. And
No,
I'm like,
you have to watch it.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Dude, it's insane.
Okay. I'm open-minded. I'm not closed to it.
You have to.
Not closed.
Seriously, it'll blow your mind.
So I watched one of the singles matches, and I was amazed. So I'm watching these guys, and it was a folk style match. Like they were, or freestyle, whatever, tie-ups and same kind of thing. It was
wrestling.
It was a single leg takedown that the guy did, and then they were going into some submissions, but the count was different. It was 1, 2, 3. Like you had to,
pro wrestling.
Yeah, shoulders had to be down for a 3 count. So I get it. With that kind of a count, gives you an opportunity to, fight. You get to hear what's going on with the count, not just a ref sitting there, and you hopefully you don't hear him slap his hand.
Yeah. But see, more importantly, and this is what pro wrestling has figured out.
Okay.
Is they figured out how to make a fuck ton of money with wrestling, although it's fake, but you don't have to have the outcome be fake. You can do all the other pageantry, the large, loud pounding of the mat.
Yep.
That's theatrical, but it's still competitive.
Yes.
The fact that it's submission grappling, so you pull in the UFC guys and the jiu-jitsu guys who know what's going on there.
Yep.
But you don't get all this dumb, like,
jumping off the top rope shit.
Yeah, well, you don't get the dumb pro wrestling, but you don't get the weird gay porno that you see in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, yeah.
Like got his legs around the other guy, and it's like, oh my God, Jesus. You know what I mean? My kids, I don't even know if they should watch this. Like, because when the guy's on his back, you can lose there too.
Right.
So, it's important to think about the athletes and that they have fun, sure.
Yep.
But what I'm making sure is that it's a spectator sport.
Yes.
And this is. One of the things that inspired me, I sent you a flyer today that I'm doing some seminars with King Mo.
Yeah.
And U.S. Senior Nationals 3-time champ. This guy's a freaking stud. MMA multi-champ, just a stud.
Fuck yeah, he is.
And but I first got wind of Mo at this random ass thing. There was this guy named Matt Case, and he and his partner, I don't think it was Matt. He was big into folk style. I can't remember what state he was in. It could have been Iowa.
Okay.
But he and his buddy, I think his buddy's family, he lived, but his family got killed in a horrible car accident.
Holy shit.
And he ended up getting like millions of dollars in a settlement.
Yeah.
And what he decided to do was he said, they created something called Real Pro Wrestling. This was like 2005.
I remember it. I remember it. Yep. It
was cool. But what they missed, I was there at the tapings. They did the tapings in LA. I knew Matt back then. I haven't kept in touch with him, but so I got in, I got to meet all the guys, and Mo won that. And what they did that I think was a mistake is they just kept the folk style rules. They had like an American Gladiators looking set, and they had like this, instead of a mat, it was like a moated area where you got knocked off the platform. I was like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. But it was still folk style rules. And I could see, I knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the grandmas in the crowd, they were tuned out. They're like, this is boring. I don't know what's going on. Like, why does he get a point? And what is this? And
right.
Pro wrestling's simple. Pro wrestling is just like MMA. Simple. Yeah. There's 2 ways to win. In MMA, knockout or submission.
Submission, yep.
Pro wrestling, pin or submission.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's simple.
Yeah, it's pretty not complicated. Yeah. Yeah. So but
it looks awesome in the ring. It looks amazing.
But other than the submission or the pin, are there points involved? Can there be a decision?
Yeah, I had to. Because I am a nerd and I am thorough. I did have to start because I looked down, dude. I've had these plans laid out for like 20 years. I've just been checking them off. It's just taking a minute.
Right. Yeah.
But one of the things that I realized, and I realized this, we ran a tournament and I didn't want to do points.
Yeah.
And we ran this kind of experiment.
Yep.
And dude, some of these matches, like the old matches, went hours. Like it was ridiculous.
Holy shit.
Because neither guy wants to give up. And then I'm like, well, dude, there is going to be no TV station that picks this up because you can't put a commercial in. You can't bleed over into the next TV spot.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I need to do, and there was a couple of Japanese promotions that had an interesting point system. And really the point system, so I did put time limits on, and then I created this this point system that only happens in the case of a draw.
Okay. Yep. And that's kind of what I was asked for, just in case of that, because you can't have an 11-hour match, right? It's like, holy shit, these guys will die out here. So you got to.
Well, dude, that was actually the time on the longest match in the Olympics was 11 hours.
Yeah, I talked to Frank Jasper about that yesterday. Yeah, he was telling me that it was an 11-hour match, and I can't remember who he said was involved in it, but he said that it was to the point to where I think one of the guys had to be carried off like on a stretcher because they had gone for so long. He just couldn't. They were done. Like they were cashed. So that's why I was kind of wondering, like, man, these guys there's got to be a cutoff somewhere because these guys will wind up dying otherwise. Obviously, I'm sure you thought of something, which you did. How is that playing out though now? I mean, how many is it 3 events you've had so far?
So we've had 3 events, and I'm a business guy.
Yeah.
So I've done plenty of masochism and just punished myself for no good reason. And I've learned, I tried to touch the hot stove one time.
Yeah.
So I've done 3 shows.
Yep.
There is interest.
Good.
I basically did what's called an MVP, a minimum viable product. I wanted to create 3 shows to show what was possible with this.
Yep.
And I did it on a shoestring, dude. I did it for like next to nothing.
Nice.
And people are like losing their goddamn minds. So now I'm in the process of shopping it around. I don't really want to go into it because I got some cool things cooking.
Yep.
But I just don't want to mess it up.
That's fine.
So like the vision is big.
Good.
The vision is really big because one thing I realized when I was trying to sell the training camps and the relevancy.
Yep.
Like UFC is the driver of everything in the martial arts world right now.
Okay.
Like pretty much like UFC and maybe some John Wick movies.
Yeah.
That's what drives
the
business, right?
Yep.
The business side, not the socialized sports side, but the actual retail business side.
Mm-hmm.
And UFC is a business and all that kind of stuff. So I realized that the only way this stuff sells is if you have a platform to put the studs on, the guys that really are impressive.
Yep.
You put that on, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, then you get the kids, then you get the weekend warriors, and you could start actually building a huge sport.
Nice. Well, I wholeheartedly appreciate it. I think it's nice because of seeing, like we mentioned, wrestling is taking, I don't know, a whole other level. It's taking guys from wrestling to MMA and they're crushing it and they're killing it, right? It would be nice because, again, these guys can't keep going to Olympic style wrestling constantly because there's no money there. There's no stipend. There's nothing unless you're the top dude, Jordan Burroughs.
The top guys, Jordan Burroughs, they make like millions of dollars.
Plenty of money. That's it. So,
but again, it's the same deal as Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
The top guys in Soviet Russia, they have their apartment, they have their cars, and all the guys that don't make it, and they're still in the Olympic team, but they're not there. Yeah. Dude, they're like eating crackers.
So with your vision, you're able to bring people another product that is allowed to get these guys some money. If this is the direction they choose to go, which, I mean, they need to hit up, they need to hit you up soon, Jake Shannon, in order to kind of get a roll on it. I think it's an interesting way to go. I think it's an interesting twist. And I think it could be extremely fruitful just because it's already tied into it. It was already part of it long time ago. It's just need to be readjusted again and brought back to the real world. I think it's awesome. Watching the guys in the matches that I saw, I thought I was literally watching just another folk style match that was inside of a ring. It was literally another folk style match, but they were getting paid for it. The guys are going to get paid for it. So to me,
dude, and you have to watch. So you probably watched Shoot Pro 3.
Yes.
You need to watch Shoot Pro 2, which was the tag team tournament.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't watch that one. I'll watch that one for sure. That's crazy shit.
I can't even tell you. It's so insane. I'm trying not to oversell it. It is so crazy.
That's cool. But that's what I like about it, because it's already affiliated with something that we all enjoy, we all love, which is wrestling or combat sports in general. So with that being said, I've kept you around for an hour, and I don't want to give everything away because I do want to have you back on the show and be able to talk about some more stuff. So we're going to keep it short. And I see, obviously we got the weekend popping up here too. So we got things we want to get going to on a Friday night, right? So with that being said, I do appreciate you, Coach Jake Shannon, coming on. I thank you. I'd love to have you back on. I still want to talk to you for just a minute once we're done here, but I'm going to see, now I'm an old fart, and you've probably figured this out already, but I play my music here, right? And this guy, this awesome dude, one of the dads from around our area made this song, right? You'll be able to hear it when you listen to the episode. You can't hear it. And I've said this on every episode, and everybody's probably sick of hearing me say it, but it really irritates me that you guys can't hear this. Anyways, we're leaving it at that. Coach Jake Shannon, thank you very much. This has been
Thank you, Brad.
Hey, you know what? Forget about this. You need to do some plugs. What do you got to plug quick?
The big thing is like that flyer I sent you.
Yep.
I think that, I'm really excited right now about this tour that we have cooking. We do two tours every year. We do one in the spring and one in the fall. The website is called coachingcatch.com.
Yep.
And it's really, we've come to call it the Accelerator Camp.
Okay.
Because almost everybody, we've had the number one. Yeah, that's King Mo right there. The number one feedback I've had in the 15 years plus of doing this, the number one feedback is guys will come to a camp for 2 days. They'll go back to their gym and they'll be like, dude, I just beat the shit out of a guy who beat the shit out of me for years after one weekend. And I'm like, yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I'm super proud of that. Coaching Catch, we got King Mo, Josh Barnett, Wade Chalice, Guinness record holder for the most wins and pins in all of wrestling, wins over national champions, wins over an international champion, 5-sport combat sport All-American. Wade is going to be there. Josh. It's crazy, dude. We got a great camp. I really wish people would come out.
You're doing it right. Well, if you're out in the area, get to the camp. Let's see. When is this? It says Denver, you're going to be September 2nd and 3rd in Denver, Colorado. Norman, Oklahoma, October 7th and 8th. In Lake Charles, Louisiana, October 14th and 15th. Weaponize your wrestling, folks. Get to the camp or get to coachingcatch.com. All right. So we
got more dates than just those. Those are just the ones with King Mo.
Yep. And those are the best. Peace, everybody. We're out. All of our episodes are brought to you by Appleton Tattoo, located at 117 South Appleton Street in Appleton, Wisconsin, right off the main drag on College Avenue. You can't miss them. I've had some work done. I have a Celtic cross that covers my back that was done by Jason. We're not done yet. Jason Winans and crew, the artists that he have there, those guys are the best in the Fox Valley. They are definitely one to go to if it's something that you've just been kind of throwing around. They'll make you feel comfortable. It's a very clean environment, very nice crew, and very willing to get done whatever you need done when you need it done. You can message them on Facebook. I know they're on Facebook. You can give them a call at 920-604-8289 and get in touch with Jason Winans and crew at Appleton Tattoo, located again in Appleton, Wisconsin at 117 South Appleton Street, right in Appleton. Very flexible hours, great crew, clean environment again. I would not send you anywhere else except for these guys. Appleton Tattoo.